Hello, everyone. This is your girl, Simply Love, and I'm in the house to do an update for you. And this is going to be, I'm just passing on a little information regarding the retrograde that we have coming up. And this is going to be the Mercury Retrograde. Mercury is going to go in retrograde, okay? These things are a lot of things that we need to, kind of like hold ourselves accountable to and wonder why things happen the way they do, because we are all part of the universe, the stars, the moon, the planets, the sun, all of that we're a part of. And especially when these planets start rotating and going in an astrological form, it affects us, and it affects people in general. With the Mercury retrograde goes direct, okay? And that's going to be, and the Mercury retrograde rules communication and travel, automobiles, such as, things like that. And it does go in retrograde March 25th to April 5th, okay? Or April 15th. July 26th to August 19th. November 7th to December 6th. You might want to write these dates down so you'll be aware of what's really going on when this takes, when Mercury does go retrograde. Mercury is what? A planet. Okay, it's a planet. It's a time for us to remain flexible and avoid signing any type of contracts. You want to kind of review all your projects and plans. You want to, really just go over it thoroughly during the Mercury retrograde, which is coming up, March 25th to April 15th. That's the first retrograde going direct. Okay. And then it's coming around again, July 26th to August 19th, November 17th to December 6th. Miscommunication and arguments can come up. People being mean and angry. You got where exes, or ex-spouses or things like that want to return into your life. For some of you, you might want to really be aware of that. Somebody, you used to deal with might just pop up out of nowhere from the past. Someone you used to deal with that you ended a situation with, they might miss you, and they kind of like coming around to themselves. Like, look, if you're not feeling that energy, and especially if you're tied to someone else, either if you're going to go back to that situation, you need to tie up loose ends with someone that you might be with at this time, or start a relationship with. You want to be on your P's and Q's when it comes to stuff like that, because we're entering in the age of Aquarius. We are moving forward. The planets are rotating. They're trying to recycle out of this Pisces energy that we've been through with there's people being deceptive and being deceiving towards other people wearing masks, hiding stuff, sneaking around, all this third party situation. Things of that nature is all coming out of that Pisces energy that we went through for a while now. Now things are being revealed. So with the Mercury retrograde, I feel like, it's like a cycle occurred, like a final grinding of the Hubble telescope mirror. To me, it's like a final come around. It's like a final where it comes into where people can solve past issues. If there's things that have been hanging in the air, you can kind of it's going to come around again to where you can make amends. People can say they're sorry about certain things, but just keep it moving, kind of close doors that are still maybe open within inside yourself, or, that's outside of yourself as well. During this Mercury retrograde, we also, you're going to have to be very, very alert and aware of what's going on around you. You have to be spiritually connected. You have to maintain your balance. Now is the time to get into meditation every single day, maybe twice a day before you go to bed, or when you go to bed. Even if you go to sleep, your subconscious mind is always awake. It's your body that gets that rest, that sleeps and recharges itself. But the spiritual part of you is always awakened, which is your subconscious mind. That's your everlasting, that's always going to always be aware and alert and getting information and and study growing and study, thinking, or, even coming from your heart chakras as well. But this is the time when this Mercury retrograde to come in. Communication is going to be off key. Travels, be careful of signing contracts. Don't really get into nothing until this retrograde, comes to an end. And when it comes to the retrograde, when it comes to Mercury retrograde, the reason why, it talks about past things is because the planet actually rotates backwards from the stars. So when something is rotating backwards from your star, and we are all stars, period. In the universe, we're all stars. So when it rotates backwards, that means things that from the past are coming back to confront you. So for a lot of people, it's going to be, you have to be aware. You have to, like I said, be spiritually aware, be spiritually grounded, ground yourself, because there's going to be people out here acting a little nutty, coming back around, bothering you. It may be some real, bad communication for some people. If you're not ready for it, you be like, what are you in my face for about this? Or, what you come back to me about that for? And, that's what it is. So you have to be fully aware. And that's why I'm making this short little thing about the retrograde for Mercury coming up here in 2018. So you can be aware of, certain things that happen, especially when it comes to communication, especially when it comes to travel. You're going to have to double check things, look over things. Things aren't going to come out, like right on time. You're going to have to go back and kind of like keep doing stuff to make sure things are properly in order, and make sure you are, meditating, staying balanced, staying focused, staying connected with spirit. Because if you don't, you can find yourself coming in this retrograde with a lot of confusion. You'll misunderstand misunderstood communications. You'll sign documents and stuff without even looking them over, and then you'll find yourself later on down the line that you're in trouble. Maybe you're making, maybe you've signed something and you didn't look it over that well or double check. Okay, because it kind of seemed too good to be true, and you'll find yourself paying more out than what you expected. Automobiles, things like that. You have to be careful of travel, where you're going to travel. And again, it's all about the communication. It really is. And that's where you have to stand strong at in this Mercury retrograde that's coming up. Let me see what else I have to say about Mercury. Well, Mercury rules Gemini, so it's a retrograde in Sagittarius, which acts as a Gemini shadow. And that should prove interesting in 2017, though. The December retrograde in Sagittarius presented a clash between the U.S. and the United Nations. And now I'm getting a little into reason why, this things are happening in the United Nations, U.S., things like that, politics. The cycle begins pre-shadow in Scorpio on October 29th at 12:50 a.m., October 28th at 8:50 p.m. Shown in the preceded chart. In that chart is what it's saying. Mercury retrograde stations occur in Sagittarius, 29 degrees, okay, at 1:33 a.m. on November 17th and 9:33 p.m. Eastern on November 18th. Mercury goes direct at 9:22 p.m. UTC time on December 6th in Scorpio, 27 degrees, 16 inches. The past shadow ends on December 2018 at 11:26 a.m. UTC time. Now, examples of the Mercury retrograde cycle. A classic example of the cycle occurred in the final grinding of Hubble telescope mirror. During the pre-shadow, an exception had been made that it's like the deformation of the mirror due to the Earth's gravity had been compensated for prior to grinding. The Mercury retrograde proper would have been the grinding of the mirror with incorrect calculations The post shadow would have revealed that when it was in orbit, the surface geometry was now flawed, and a later shuffle mission had to be created to fix it by adding more issues. Now, Mercury retrograde can be a blessing. The retrograde cycle tends to reveal what is not working properly, okay? So it can be a blessing in disguise. It's going to bring that out, what's not working properly. And although it can contribute to delays and frustrations, it can also reveal issues that are important to resolve, fix, or address. It is actually a very good time to deal with what has been put on the back burner. I think I talked about that earlier. Or to finish what had already been started much earlier. It is a good time for reflective and creative writing, inner work, journalism, spiritual work. I mentioned that earlier too. Meditating, staying grounded, and completing a long overdue task. Like if there's some tasks that you've been wanting to do during this Mercury retrograde to keep you focused and keep you, it's all like a keeping you settled and keeping you at peace in your mind amongst all the confusion that's going to take place, because a lot of people just aren't aware of the planets. They're not in tune. They're not even thinking about these things. People are operating in drama right now. They're like operating in the world, not, being in the world, not of the world. So that's what's taking place. That's where the confusion comes in with Mercury retrograde if you're not in tune. The Mercury retrograde occurs in two levels. At one level, there is not much you can do with the actions of others. Okay, you can't do much with the actions of others except be more conscious and prepared for delays and errors by double checking, as I talked about earlier. But at the personal level, you can do a lot in order to avoid the consequences of the Mercury retrograde. Most of us encounter the consequences when we are not centered. See, I said that earlier. When you're not centered, when you're not in tune with spirit, you're not knowing what's going on with the universe, knowing that you are part of it. And when these things happen, you'll be aware, you'll be ahead of it, and you'll have control over it. So, and consequences when we are not centered, aware, or conscious of what is going on around us, and more often that not the culprit is that we are not acting from our heart and spirit. And I said that earlier too. You have to be connected to spirit, okay? Heart and spirit. Instead, we are reaching from our needs, our hurts, from our buttons being pushed, or the way that we take care of others and ourselves. In that way, we act from our shadow side, the dark side. And that is what Mercury retrograde is all about now. Mercury retrograde occurs when it is moving backwards into its shadow. And thus communication, scheduling, transportation, and judgment becomes cloudy, of error prone. So if you're not in tune with what I'm just saying to you about the Mercury retrograde before it takes place and goes direct, these are things that you're going to be facing. You're going to let all this stuff really get to you, and you're not, because you're not aware of what's going on. You're not connected spiritually. You're not grounding yourself. You have to prepare yourself for these things because they do happen. We're all part of the universe, and we are affected by these planets or whatever goes on in the universe. Okay, as much as outer work is challenged by Mercury retrograde, introspection and inner work is very supported. Take advantage of the Mercury retrograde by clearing your own tendencies to get caught up in your own shadows and those of others. So be careful that you don't get caught. What I'm talking about, getting caught up in other people's shadows, dark side. That means, if you're not operating and not aware of what's going on, you're not, paying attention, other people can affect you with their bull crap because they're not in tune with what's going on around them. So they tend to, take that anger and frustration out of the Mercury retrograde because they're not understanding what's going on.